Download the AllStar app. Make your picks for UFC fights, challenge your friends, level up and win prizes. Link in description. Get it now. All right, Kyle. Let's start with this, man. The ABC, the Association of Boxing Commissions, they recently unanimously voted to allow the 12-6 elbows and also knees to a grounded opponent. But this stuff goes into effect on November 1st. What do you think of those changes?
Yeah, so the 12 to 6 elbows I think are fine. Again, the only issue would be like we still have to be careful about where they land as far as like the mohawk. Um, but yeah, like if you're in mount, I don't see a problem with them. Side control stuff like that. Again, it's just gonna be when people are shooting in on takedowns or when you're against the fence. I think we're still gonna have to be careful with the and refs are gonna have to be very focused to make sure it's not landing behind the head or on top of the head. But yeah, otherwise I think I haven't seen any issues with it. And obviously 12 to 6 elbows are legal in Muay Thai and stuff. So yeah, I think it's a good addition. The knees to the grounded opponent. Again, I think it's tricky if you have your knee down. I don't think you're allowed to knee to the head, but it's if you like play the game with the hands. So I got to look at those rules a little bit more. But yeah, I've already started training the 12 to 6 elbows and stuff. Even though I can't use them in this next fight, but I'll be ready, for my following fight after that.
Yeah, it must be fun to be able to add something more to your arsenal, right? Like you need more ways to finish fights, so this is just better for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're both weapons that work well with my game. So yeah, I'm excited to get the opportunity to use them.
Definitely. Man, we just found out, Calvin Kidder pulls out. What are your thoughts on the whole situation?
Yeah, so I mean the Calvin Cater fight came to a bit of as a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting a top 15 guy, but I was excited. I think Calvin Cater is a great matchup for me. It would have been an exciting fight. When I initially took the fight, we had said it was for August 10th, I believe, and then he kind of had to postpone it to the September 9th, and then now yeah he's backed out of the fight altogether. I'm not sure 100% sure why. Um, I was in great shape. Again, I feel like it would have been a good fight for me. But yeah, hopefully it's something we could do in the future. I'm not sure what's going on with him or his camp or whatever, but hopefully whatever it is, he gets it sorted out and he's able to get back in the octagon. I'd love to be, his next fight back after, my this fight coming up.
No doubt. But they replace him with a pretty exciting matchup, though. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna not get a top 15 opponent, you want an exciting fight, an exciting matchup, some guy that's on a winning streak. So how do you feel about the Steve Garcia replacement?
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be an interesting fight. Again, great boxing. He's going to be a little bit taller than Calvin Cater. And yet, I think it's probably going to be almost just as tough of a fight as the Cater fight, with maybe just a little less recognition because it's not a top 10 fight. But yeah, I mean, the UFC told me Cater was out. They said they'd look for somebody else, and I just said yes. They didn't even tell me who I was fighting yet, and they're like, okay, well, awesome, we'll find you somebody, and then they sent us the name, and I was like, yep, whoever it is. I've already been in a training camp. I feel ready to go. I feel better than ever. So it didn't really matter if it was Ilya Tapura or Max Holloway or Steve Garcia. I was ready to go.
Yeah, you've gotten so much momentum built up, right? To not take this fight and not fight would just, kind of slow that down a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And having already been in a training camp and invested and took the time, it yeah wouldn't be great at all to kind of stop a training camp and then have to restart again.
And Garcia, man, four straight knockouts. What do you think about his run?
Yeah, I mean it's an exciting run. He's got I think he's a little bit reckless uh, in his in his striking and stuff like that. So there's definitely opportunities for me there. I think I have a little bit more power than he does. I think he's maybe got an inch or so on me as far as height, but definitely an exciting fighter. And when I kind of announced to my fans that Calvin Cater was pulled out, obviously a lot of people were disappointed. but a lot of people were also just as excited because of the type of fighter that Steve is, and the kind of fight that everyone's expecting us to put on.
Yeah, it seems like when you watch those four straight fights, right? You mentioned something about, yeah, he does get kind of wild and he's been clipped in those fights. But I think his opponents were making the mistakes more than him, right? Like they were just overly aggressive. Did you see that in those fights?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I can cater my style to my opponent, but something that you'll see in most of my fights is I'm not a overly reckless fighter. My defense is usually always on point. So I think that's something that's going to do well for me in this fight. You're not going to find me overextending or getting too wild. And again, I think that's where, like you said, Steve is able to take advantage of those things. He's not going to find those holes, fighting me.
You yourself, you're on three straight victories, actually four straight. I mean, we know that. Last performance was against Bill Algeo. What were some things that you prepared that worked on Bill Algeo?
So with Bill, I was really preparing for a longer fight. I knew he hadn't really been finished to strikes up until that point, so I knew he was really durable. I saw him eat some head kicks from guys like Andre Feely, and it takes a pretty solid punishment and power through and move forward. So I definitely wasn't, and I know I had more power than maybe some of the guys he fought before, but I was definitely going in expecting to outpoint him and outwork him and win the decision. But yeah, again, he got in the pocket and he wanted to trade. And when that happens, I find the holes, and like I said, I've got enough power to hurt people, and I was able to land a good shot on Bill, and even though he was able to kind of stay on his feet, every time I touched him with the overhand, and then a hook and an uppercut, and I was kind of able to keep him on wobbly legs for 30 seconds and kind of landing a lot of unanswered shots that the ref stepped in. But definitely, I think a good performance on my part and kind of was able to showcase some of my power.
Yeah, and Algeo, he recently fought Duho Choi, and Duho Choi finished him. The fight that you had with Duho Choi, it kind of ages well, I guess, because Duho Choi looked like he looked really good in his last fight against Algeo.
Yeah, definitely, and you could tell Algio was a little gun shy. So maybe again coming off the fight with me, being rocked a little bit, but everybody know Choi has a ton of power. So coming in, you could see he was really trying to wrestle hard, and Choi was just staying calm. Really good on his defensive wrestling, and was kind of waited for his time. I think Choi was aiming for a big right hand a lot, and Bill could see that and avoid it. Once Choi started adding that left hook, so the right hand Bill would avoid, but then once that left hook started coming, he touched him and hurt him pretty good with the first one, and then the second one, I'm not even sure what happened with it, but it caught Bill in the eye, and Bill kind of took a step back and decided he was done. Right, so it was a great performance for Choi. It's good to see him back in the ring. I know we had a bit of time off since our last fight, but definitely excited to see where he's going to go from here.
Sometimes when fighters get punched with those small gloves, and they the knuckle digs into the eye, it almost seems like that does more damage than someone that maybe breaks your orbital. It seems like guys can like break their orbital and kind of push forward, but when that knuckle gets in the eye, it does really make an impact, does it?
Yeah, definitely. It's and it can kind of blur your vision or kind of mess up your vision for a little bit. And yeah, I'm sure. Like I've never had my orbital bone broken, but I've been punched obviously in the eye and orbital bone, all that stuff. And I'm sure to a degree it could feel like maybe you even broke your orbital bone just from the impact to the eye. So it's hard to say because I haven't heard anything since the fight saying that Bill broke his eye or like Choi broke Bill's orbital bone or anything like that. So I haven't heard too much in depth about it. But yeah, I'm sure in the moment it could have definitely felt like he broke his orbital bone.
Yeah, and in inside the cage after your last fight, during the interview, you mentioned 50-50 custody, families need their fathers. How important was it to get that message out?
Yeah, it's an extremely important message for me to get out. It's when I get this platform, I want to use it for some good. I know some people get the mic and they like to talk a lot of crap and say whatever and try and build their social media or their Twitch or make some more money. But for me, it was really trying to use my platform to spread some awareness for something that I don't think a lot of society is aware of, but I do think it affects society a great ordeal, with a lot of children growing up in single parent homes and maybe not having the opportunity to spend some time with their father and learn very specific lessons that it's you can really only learn from your father. Mothers and fathers are both very important in children's lives, and I think with our society, we've kind of gotten away from the fact that kids and families need that the father and the leadership and the role model there. And even with society and kind of with the whole toxic masculinity thing, I think they're pushing away from fathers and male leaders that society really needs right now. And I think we see that with some of the youth coming up, and maybe a lack of self discipline and self control and hard work and maybe some entitlement that I think having a father in your life kind of helps curb and helps build a strong work ethic and discipline. And again, like I said, mothers have their role, and it's a very important role as well in raising children, but I think fathers have an equal important role as well.
I completely agree with you, man, on that. Me being a father as well. Now, preparations for this fight coming up. You had Calvin Cater. Now you got Steve Garcia. I feel like the style is very like hand heavy. So, do you make a lot of changes for that?
Well, we were going to make a few changes. I mean, Steve's a little bit taller. Now, Cater is very pinpoint and technical with his strikes. Like his jab cross are kind of his best weapons, and they're straight. He's long with them. They're very precise, and that's a little bit different than Steve. I think Steve's a little bit wilder. So it's just going to be in my defense. We're just going to have our hands placed in slightly different spots, and we're going to have more openings to return. Again, Cater's very technical, straight to the point, back to his defense. I think with Steve, he's going to, again, be a little bit wilder. So there's going to be bigger openings, not only during his offense, but when he's done his offense in his defense. I think there's better openings as well. So I also think little things like Steve's wrestling defense and takedown defense, I don't think it's going to be quite as good as Cater's, and some little things like that. But yeah, for the most part, we're definitely going to be addressing his style of boxing versus Cater's style of boxing.
You represent House of Champions, phenomenal team over there. You also cross train at Niagara Top Team. You work with pretty much the best, like the best fighters Canada has in the UFC, like Mike Malott, Jasmine as well. Like, How has it been working with Mike Malott, someone that's a little bit bigger, but I think he fought at featherweight in the past.
Yeah, so yeah, Mike, he started his career. He did his first like 8 or 9 fights at featherweight, and then he took a few years off, and I think he focused on grappling a little bit, and yeah, came back at 170. But Mike's a great training partner for me. I mean, in my last few fights, like Bill was a bit taller than me. Fought some tall opponents, and now Steve's going to be taller than me. So getting to work with Mike, who's a little bit taller, he's got great technical striking, great wrestling, great jiu-jitsu. So he's really a great partner overall for me, and he's a very controlled training partner. So he knows when to turn it up and when to tone it down and stuff like that. So he's not a guy that when I'm training with him, even though he's a couple weight classes heavier, it's not something I'm too concerned about, because I know he's controlled, and I know like my style and my frame, I do well against big guys anyways. Like I generally carry myself a little bit heavier, and I carry enough muscle to compete and train with some bigger guys as well. So Mike's a great training partner for me.
For sure. Right now you are on a 4 fight winning streak, and before that, a lot of people left you for dead. How does it feel to be like the most successful Canadian fighter at the moment? I believe that's what you are.
Yeah. I've had a few other people mention that. You know, it's it's interesting because of my rocky start in the UFC, It definitely wasn't what I had planned, but now I feel like we've found kind of my footing. I've developed my style for the UFC, and yeah, I think it's just the beginning really for me, and where I'm going to go with my UFC career. And yeah, I'm excited to represent Canada, and kind of lead the charge with the win streak that I have going right now. And but yeah, I mean, we got like Mike is going to make a big comeback soon. Jazz is picking up some more momentum again. Loopy unfortunately just lost over the weekend, but again, she's split her time between Mexico and Canada, and another great talent from Canada. So we're really building some steam here in Canada, and hopefully the UFC is going to come back soon to Canada, and we'll be able to put on another great show.
What are your expectations out of yourself in this fight coming up against Steve Garcia?
I think it's going to go very similar to my other fights. We're probably gonna stand and strike a little bit more, which every fight my striking's getting better, and I'm able to open up a little bit more and use some tools that I have that work well in training, and I'm introducing them more and more into my fighting style. So we're going to see a lot of that. Again, I think Steve's going to be a little bit wild. He likes to come on strong in that first round, and I think we're probably going to see me stun him early. And if I don't finish him early, we're going to put him on his back foot, and then we're going to see him kind of move around a lot, and then. But I think probably going to be a mid to late first round TKO for me.
All right, one last thing before I let you go. Recently, there have been like accusations of spying, right? And in other sports, it
Mhm.
happens, right? They're using drones to spy on teams. Do you think it exists in MMA?
Maybe at the highest level, but like with guys that are at the highest level, there's so much fight footage on them that you can, I mean, if you study it, you can figure everything out anyways. So the only thing you're going to maybe pick up spying is again if they're training something very specific for a fight. But if you're that invested into what your opponent's doing, you're not paying enough time on getting better yourself, I don't think. So MMA is such an individual sport. You need to focus so much on improving yourself, especially in between fights, but even in the training camp. Like if you want to watch some tape, find some holes in your opponent and then build your game plan around that. If you're going to spend all your time worrying about what they're going to do, you're not going to be focusing on what you're going to do. And then when you get in the cage, you're just going to be reacting to what you think they're going to do and not implementing your game plan. So I think it's a bad way to go about fighting.
All right, man. September 7th, UFC Fight Night, Las Vegas. A banger, man. I think this one is going to be, I don't know, think it's going to be a fight of the night. I think it's going to be one of those performance of the night type things. But yeah, it's going to be exciting as shit. Thank you so much, Kyle, for the time, man. All the best in the fight.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on.